Hi everyone, it's Raina. So this video is if you have your Sun in Aries and Libra rising. Aries and Libra are opposite signs, also called complementary signs, and this is a very interesting combination because you're going to get that seesaw effect from the polarity of two signs that oppose one another. And by the way, it's important to note that not everybody with this combination will experience an official opposition in terms of the aspect itself. It depends on the degree span between these 2 points. But because of the signs that are involved here, you can still look at the dynamic that they will produce, and that is enough to really see how this will play out. So, the reason I say this, if we look at each of these signs, we have Aries in the sun sign position, so that heat of the sun, and Aries, which is a fire sign. And the sun represents the individual. So, because Aries rules the first house of the body and the self, that is emphasized. And it's going to make a person who is very confident. Sometimes you could say cocky if the person is overly confident. It can make a person who is very energetic. I mean, I'm thinking of all the things that I would associate with Aries. Very blunt, to the point type of individual. Somebody who doesn't like to drag things out because Aries is very impatient. So, it's important to note that the sun is the central influence of the chart. This is why we always talk about the sun sign above all else. Obviously, people are interested in other influences in the astrological chart as well. I'm not just saying that nobody cares about that, but they will say, what is your sign, first and foremost, because the sun is so important. And the sun represents our aspirational self, what we aspire to become. So I really believe that the sun sign's influence can be obscured earlier on in a person's life, and that actually the rising sign can take precedence before the first Saturn return. And actually, I have read so much on astrology and astrological influences for decades now. So I really wish I could tell you where I was reading this, because it wasn't that long ago, actually, when I was reading about the rising sign influence. And I do believe they mentioned something about being younger and having that uh, more dominant in the way their personality as a whole. And the rising sign it can represent the physical appearance, but even the sun sign, and I would say the moon sign, can also contribute to that as well. But front and center, we would say with the rising sign, first impressions that a person gives to others, how the person carries themselves, so their demeanor, their mannerisms, their physical appearance, their body type, their clothing, their fashion sense, the way that they act when they're with other people. That can be the rising sign. But because the person may not be fully developed, if they're a teenager or even in their 20s, They may still be kind of, it's almost like being one-dimensional in a sense. And then maybe later on, the person, it feels more comfortable kind of being, individuating. And that's why I really tie the rising sign to the family of origin. So, what could this mean for you if you have this combination? Definitely, there may be a theme of um, two extremes, when we talk about the polarity between opposite signs. There might be, it might be hard for you to integrate the influences of both of these signs. And so you might feel like you have to emphasize either one rather than try to integrate, in other words, absorb some of those things that are harder to accept within yourself, to be able to do so, even if it's difficult. So how would that play out in this combination? Well, first of all, with Libra rising, you may have grown up in an environment where there was some kind of, it can depend, but sometimes this can be where you have to put on a false face that everything is okay. And this is, I think Libra rising is actually a difficult ascendant to have, come to think of it, because it's not your true self. And even your sun sign is yourself with a small s, as far as I'm concerned, because it is only for this lifetime. It's not your ultimate self. This is just, a physical incarnation. But in any case, I feel like when people have Libra rising, that they can put on a good show. They can look very appealing. In other words, they can be physically beautiful or handsome. So people automatically have a good impression of them. Because, your rising sign can be the impression that you make. They can be well put together in terms of clothing, very harmonious. They can have a pleasing manner or mannerisms, like they are a natural PR agent. They know exactly what to say, they know how to say it, and that kind of softens people to them and makes other people more willing to give them what they want. You are ruled by Venus having Libra rising, because Libra is ruled by Venus. You can also say that you're ruled by Mars, because that is the ruler of your sun sign. So both of these, if you listen to astrologers, they will say this is your ruler. If you listen for your sun sign to astrology, you'll hear them still refer to it as your ruler. But I want you to think about this. Venus and Mars. Now, these are the divine lovers, and you can say this is the divine feminine, divine masculine, but even in astrology, Venus and Mars can form hard angles to one another. So, and this is a hard angle between the sun and rising sign, just in terms of these two particular signs. Maybe not officially in your chart, but just in general. So that means that there is like this very contradictory side to yourself where sometimes maybe you're very aggressive and maybe overly aggressive, and then sometimes you're overly acquiescent. In other words, being too much of a people pleaser. And you might veer from one to the other. Why? Because the opposition creates those extremes. So how would you integrate these two things? Well, first of all, by saying to yourself, why um, do I need to learn how to say no? And how can I say no in a way that isn't rude? Because that's another thing about Aries, the sun sign, influence is that there can be a brusque manner, meaning that the person can be very curt or short with others. It isn't that Aries people, and this is not going to be true of Aries people across the board, but this is something that can certainly be true, and it's not because the person is being malicious. It's because it is something that is done to kind of like cut to the chase. Like, so if you hear somebody talking and it seems like they're just talking excessively, you might just kind of interrupt them and say, well, just, what do you need? Or what's the bottom line? And Libra rising doesn't want to make any waves. I find that Aries people, and I'm talking specifically of sun sign now, that Aries people tend to have this idea about life, that life is kind of this, I don't know, competition or, game. Actually, game is too benign. Benign a response. What I mean is that Aries people can think of life as a battle, like a constant battle. And there may be, not all Aries people are the same. Maybe there are some Aries people that are much more peace-loving and wouldn't think in those terms. But I'm talking about like the classic Aries attitude is, that maybe even in some cases with Aries, when they're younger, they might even start fist fights or something along that way of looking at things. But if, that's not the case, the person may still have this idea that life is spicier when there is some kind of conflict. So you might have a trollish side to yourself. But with Libra rising, there's always this built-in impulse to be the peacemaker. So that may be something that you have to contend with, where you ask yourself, why am I engaged in some kind of fight with this person? I'm not talking about like a physical fight, but like maybe you're sparring with someone online, having like, especially like debate, because Libra is connected to communication. Look to your Mercury for more details on that, because Mercury is very close to the Sun. If your Sun is also in Aries, you may be the kind of person who is prone to writing things that, social media can be your playground to kind of instigate things, because it's a way to kind of let off steam and be able to also, I would say, be provocative, provoke other people's reactions, which I don't think is always wrong. I think sometimes it allows other people to see how they behave when their beliefs are challenged, And it can be a good thing. Can you tell that I'm a kind of a troll? But I don't have that combination, but I'm kind of a troll myself. But I don't like the word troll because I really, sometimes when I write things that are provocative, it exposes people who might be pretending to be a certain way. Also, another thing with Libra is that it's associated with the law, the seventh house and the ninth house in Sagittarius, which happens to be my sun sign. Both of those houses, seventh and the ninth houses, and the signs of Libra and Sagittarius, but especially Libra, is associated with the law. And it's because, and that's why probably I'm assuming in the tarot, the Justice card is connected to Libra. So Libra can see all sides of an issue. So that makes it easy for Libra, people with a prominent Libra, to be fair, to be impartial, to see every aspect of an issue. And with the Aries sun sign, there is this very aggressive stance. So because these are opposing sides, I feel like you may have this tendency to go from one extreme to the other, being the peacemaker versus being the instigator. And this can also apply, I feel, to your love life, where there may be a part of you that wants to be in a relationship, and there's a part of you that is connected to the Aries part that wants to be very independent. Now, which one of these will rule? I feel when you're younger, the Libra energy may take center stage, but you can never discount the sun sign's influence because it is all pervasive. And so when you're younger, you may exhibit a more contradictory nature where you may want to be in a relationship, but then the relationship might be contentious. And sometimes I would say, too, that you have to be careful of a tendency to be attracted to someone because you're physically attracted to them. Aries is ruled by Mars, and Mars can be the sex drive. And Libra is ruled by Venus, and it can be aesthetics. So typically, being attracted to somebody because of how they look rather than whether you have a lot in common with them, and how they look, meaning not just like, oh, wow, this person is a gorgeous specimen, but this person really turns me on. Oh my gosh, this is like, I think this person is so hot. That could be a recipe for disaster. And it's not uncommon, I think, for Aries people to fall into that trap. Especially look at some of your other inner planets because, what is your Mars? Your sun sign is ruled by Mars, but is your Mars in Aries too? She could very well be in, or even in Taurus. Taurus can be very lusty. So look at those things. It's interesting too, in terms of contradictory nature, how Aries, in terms of careers, may go into professions that are, kind of dangerous or connected with, the war because of the Mars influence. So, for instance, if you are a soldier, if you're in the military as a soldier, or if you are actually any capacity of the military, because it could still be dangerous, even if you're like a medic, you might be in a war zone, and that could be very dangerous. Also, a cop. And because you have Libra rising, not to say that the rising sign is going to necessarily be influential in your choice of professions, but how you carry yourself is that you may want to be somebody that can diffuse situations, since you have this, you might have like a gift as a mediator, and your presence may be harmonious to others, and that can diffuse situations. Show business or the entertainment field may be something that calls to you, because both of these signs being masculine can indicate like an extroverted nature. So you're somebody who may want to kind of be on stage. Aries tends to be very confident, and um, it's going to take control of the situation, or it's going to be the main influence, the sun sign. So definitely, especially since you are also this double cardinal energy, and you may even have more, based on your moon sign, your Mercury, your Venus, and or Mars, where you just go for these things, and so it makes it more likely to occur. I mean, sometimes people complain about mediocre everything that's connected to the arts, but at the very least, you can appreciate someone who goes after what they're into and isn't just kind of sitting on the sidelines with all these brilliant ideas that they haven't executed. So you're probably guaranteed success at some point by virtue of the fact that you're willing to take action. Maybe it's messy action, but you might take action. So yeah, I think it can be, I was going to say, a dynamic, pairing, but it can be problematic in the sense of what it is that you want versus how you present yourself, because you might be looking at things that to other people seem diametrically opposed. You're looking for your freedom, but at the same time, you want relationship. And especially since that rising sign might be so influential in your 20s, that could be the time, you might even get coupled early on. And because Aries is a very impulsive sign, you may just go for it early on. And if the person isn't really the right person for you, which just because you want a relationship doesn't mean that you choose wisely. So I don't want to suggest that everybody with this combination is going to be great at making decisions about this. There's so much more to look at in the chart to fine tune that and pinpoint it. But in general, when people have oppositions with the sun and the rising sign, I would ask them to really search within themselves to see if they are operating at extremes, because that could very well be the case. And then they can feel like it's hard for them to get what they want, because the things that they claim that they want are like at two opposite ends of the spectrum. And yet that's why I keep using the word integration, because an example would be for your love life, well, it could apply to career too, actually, is the Aries wants autonomy, and freedom is a part of that autonomy. To me, being a fellow fire sign, that would mean that I have some say in, the kind of choices that I make on my job. I'm not just completely having to do the bidding of the employer if I am working for someone else, if not for myself. And by the way, this combination, that could be a very big if, because you would be a natural to have your own business, to call your own shots. When people have a lot of cardinal energy, and even two planets at these crucial points can be very strong in that regard. You might just be more well suited for working for yourself. I would especially say that with Aries. Aries, to me, tends to be a very headstrong sign, rebellious, doesn't really, prefers to give orders than to take orders. Libra, to me, is a little bit more cooperative out of those two signs, for sure. But in any case, having the ability to kind of like have some say over what the policies are, what you're doing, so that you're not just completely having to follow somebody else's wishes, and you can use your own natural intelligence to do that. But also maybe even setting your own hours and having, more freedom in that way. With your love life, it can be that you need a long leash. So it doesn't mean you have to be single your whole life because you think that every person is going to be, you know, controlling in that sense, because they're not. So, being able to understand that you can hold out for the person that is really special for someone like you, that really does um, believe in mutual freedom, that can be a life partner. Like I said, it's all about balance. And certainly with your rising sign, that might be a theme in your life. Am I too assertive? Or am I actually aggressive? Am I too acquiescent? Am I going along with something that, am I being generous with someone because I want a relationship? Financially generous because I want a relationship, but I'm actually being taken to the cleaners or taken for a ride? Or am I too dependent, emotionally dependent on a relationship? Yes, the rising sign is, Libra is not emotional in the way that we would talk about the water signs, and or even the the fire signs, actually. But still, it is very relationship oriented. And there's kind of like this cast that is set early on that makes you naturally want to have that in your life. But you have to balance it out with your need for individuality. Okay, that's what I have for you. I hope that this resonated. If you would like a private reading, the link is below. Take care. Bye.